My name is Bart Butler.
My name's Michael Edward.
I started back in 1992 at Haunted Verdun Manor, worked there for 14 years, running various different haunts, and then started my own 5 years ago.
I worked in the haunted house industry for a little over 25 years.
I've been doing it since I was a child. I've been scaring people, started out with my family and friends. My sister is still terrified to leave her closet door open at night.
Well, you know, I think I decided to do this for, I guess, a living, as you could say. I knew when I was very young that I would eventually do this. You know, I had my first haunted house in my house when I was 7 years old. Was really attracted to things that were scary, a lot because of my parents.
Fear is, what is the definition of fear? It's an emotion. It's something that gets your blood pumping. It's something that gets you know, your adrenaline rushing. It's an awesome thing to have. Every human has it. It's just, you're born with it.
My definition of fear is kind of the adrenaline rush that a person feels when they're either facing or they are under the impression that they're facing something that's either unknown or dangerous. And that feeling of fear, it causes everything from sweating to tightening of the muscles to falling down faint in some cases.
Getting into costume, period, and plus adding the scaring factor in there, you get a reward. You get a reaction out of a stranger. Plus, you get to leave the whole. When you get into costume, you get to leave the whole world behind you. All those worries, bills, you know, stress at your regular job, all that, it goes away. Everything is gone except for you in that certain character you're in, scaring anybody and everybody you can.
You know, I think it's funny, but I think one of the reasons why I like scaring people actually is that I consider it to be somewhat of a cathartic release of all the stress that I feel from, you know, my job, bills. You know, I have all the same stresses that, you know, anybody has, and when I have the opportunity to scare someone, it's such a rush for me as well that it's a release. And you know, I heard someone actually in a movie not too long ago kind of joking about if they weren't doing what they were doing, you know, what would they be doing? Unless I'd be killing people. So not that I would be killing people, but you release so much of that energy and stress and tension that you know, it's better than $150 an hour psychotherapy.
My acting is very brutal in your face, but I'm not that way all the time. I do, as I said, I do stand back. I do let the creepy factor catch you first, and then it's, as I said, it's an all-out assault. I just basically get like I'm actually gonna smash you in the head.
My style of haunt acting, you know, you've got a lot of different styles. You have some people that are very, you know, very brutal, very in your face, very, you know, they come at you with, you know, knives and all these things. And I tend to try to go a little bit more for the psychological fear. I like to put thoughts into people's heads and have them imagine the things that, you know, maybe I'm going to do to them if I get them in a dark room somewhere. I like to be very subtle with the things that I say, and just to really get their imagination going, because I always feel like you can really frighten someone, especially when they know they're in a situation where they're really not going to get hurt. I mean, yes, you can go after somebody for real with a gun and it's going to scare them, but if they're put in a situation where, okay, I know nothing's going to really hurt me in there, I want to go for the psychological scare, because then it gets them thinking, and it's things that will stick with them for hours after they leave the haunt. I'll make comments as they leave that I hope that will stick in their head, so that they're not just scared when they're here, but they're scared 2 o'clock in the morning when they suddenly wake up and remember something that I said.
People have what's called personal bubbles, and normally some bubbles have inner bubbles. I mean, it's a very complex type of thing. When you enter somebody's personal space, it makes them feel very uncomfortable. I mean, you got people who just normally do that. You got people who come up and talk to you, and it's like, whoa, you know, back up. You get somebody that's in a different time and environment like we have. It's a little bit more freaky. People just do not like you in their a lot of people don't like you in their space. Now the thing is, once you're in their space, You stay there a little while, they get used to you, they're not scared anymore. So what we do here, is, especially what I do, is I enter their personal space and then jump right back out of it. That way there's only a time for a reaction, but there's no time for them to be for there to be any getting used to me being in their personal space at all. So I could keep going back into it and still getting the same reaction.
I've always found improvisational acting to be really not just important in the haunt industry, but in some cases in life. But for the haunt industry in particular, I go to a lot of haunts, and I see a lot of people that are trying to scare, and that's all they're trying to do. And the thing is, you can't scare everyone. You can't scare every group that comes through the house. And if you're quick and you can build this little toolbox of things that you can say, or just be prepared for the things that are going to be thrown at you, you can almost give every audience a slightly different show tailored for them. Whether it makes them more scared, whether it makes them laugh, it allows you to be able to entertain and not just try to scare, because that gets boring after a while. And the people you can't scare just get annoyed. But if you can turn that around and improvise and entertain them, even if they laugh, they're going to remember that they had a good time.
Difficult about my style is reading people. You just don't be able to read how people react when they're scared. I could pick somebody out in the crowd and know that they're frightened just by a quick glance, just by any kind of fidgeting they do, any kind of movements, the way they're positioned themselves. It can just, as I said, there's just many ways, but the only way you can know that is just by experience.
Really, I think the only thing that makes my style difficult for me is, and a lot of actors won't admit this, but it's my own fear. I know very few actors that go out on the stage and don't get some sort of stage fright. And for me, since a lot of the interaction that I do with people that are outside or in the line of the haunt is very direct. It's not necessarily aimed at a group, but it's very one-on-one. So before I walk out that gate, I actually have to steel myself for a second, and I have to tell myself, I can do this. I can go out there and give them a good show. I will be quick. I will think fast on my feet. I'm not going to be boring for them. And so it's really just getting over my little initial actor's fear of, okay, here I go. I'm ready to go out there and face them.
Would I say my method is the best? I would say my method is the best for me. I have perfected the method. I would say it's not best for anybody. Everybody has their own method in scaring. If we didn't, we'd all be the same. Nobody would be scared, because it'd be just, there's Jason Voorhees again. Wow, what does he do? He walks towards you and hacks you with a machete. I mean, you got the different characters like Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers, the Wishmaster, it's just all those. And they're all different in some way or another.
I would never say that my method is necessarily the best way to scare. Certainly it's not. Again, there's things that I do that are not going to scare people. If anything, it's the best for me. And generally, as I create different characters, even if they're very different, I still tailor them along the same lines of that somewhat subtle type of scare, unless I'm coming up with something humorous, in which case I might do something a little bit more broad, more loud, more brash. But again, it's not the best. It's just the best for me. And whatever style works for any person, if they're getting the scare or they're getting the entertainment, that's the best for them, then they're doing a good job.
It's a huge artistic value. We're actually, even though we're a haunted house, we're actually a production. We're a play. It's just that we don't play in front of thousands of people, but we do the same play thousands of times. You got costumes that you have to do. You got sets that you have to make. Your actors have to be trained. They have to, the actors that are in here have to learn their scenes, what they say, what they do, to interact with each and every customer that comes through.
There's creativity, to me, I think is one of the most important things in being part of the haunt industry. Actually, being part of any entertainment industry, I think that's the number one thing. But, you know, you have some people that think it's money. There's some people that think it's all just business. And, you know, those are parts of it. But quite honestly, you can throw all the money in the world and all of the business acumen in the world into a haunt and still have a terrible haunt. The bottom line of anything that you're going to use to entertain people is creativity. You want, you know, for me, I want to be working in a haunt that is not like everybody else's haunt. I don't want to have props and pieces and things that you'll see at Walmart or that you'll see in any other, you know, haunt down the street. I prefer to be creative and create, you know, our own props, our own, you know, if we have the capability or the time to actually make our own masks, make our own costumes, so that it sets us apart. So creativity, I think without creativity, there's no point in even having a haunted attraction.
Most haunters are viewed as, you know, goth or Satanist or anything like that. Actually, we're very, very normal, just like, you know, your next door neighbor. We just have a sixth sense of humor. You know, we like to frighten people. It's just something that's fun to us. We're just not, I don't know if we're programmed that way, or that's just something we've learned to love throughout our, you know, growing up. It could be many things, but we're very, very normal. We're not the people who majority of people think we are.
I find that haunters are viewed two different ways. Either they're not thought of at all, and people are very surprised that people like us actually exist. The fact that we have conventions and we have trade shows, they're like, really? They have associations? So that's one way. Now, the second way that they're normally viewed, and this is the one that cracks me up the most, is that people tend to think of haunters as being evil, drug-smoking devil worshippers. And having been in this business, again, a long time, there are very few people. I mean, not that we don't have a few oddballs in the business. Sure we do. But quite honestly, most of us are just very creative businessmen.
My biggest fears. Being in the haunted house industry, you never let anybody know your own fears, because we live to scare people. We actually get, we actually make a living off of it. So I will go on a limb and tell you, I'm actually scared of snakes and sharks. I don't know why. I've tried to figure them out. I think it's a childhood thing with the snakes. I think I was at the zoo and a snake wrapped around my arm at early childhood, and then I freaked out, and I think from then on out. Sharks, they're just scary to begin with. I think it's the fact that they can take my leg off within one bite. Kind of freaks me out.
Well, we talk a lot about fear and talk about the things that scare us, and I know there's some haunters that really don't want to talk about it, and there's probably a good reason why they don't. Realistic fears for me, I'm afraid of spiders. I won't run screaming like a girl like I used to if one lands on me, but I'll still run screaming, just with a semi-deeper voice. But what's funny about being in this business, and I'll throw this out to you, is kind of a funny story. My one irrational fear, the fear of something that will never happen to me, something I will never experience. I am mortally afraid of zombies. Not people in zombie costumes, not zombie movies, but it's my irrational fear because it will never happen. But it's the one thing that if it did happen, I know that I would be in the corner in a fetal position sucking my thumb, because the thought of that ever actually being real terrifies me.